The night it happened, the city looked almost beautiful. All glittering lights, soft jazz from a street cafe, and the faint hum of traffic. I was walking home from work, clutching my laptop bag and a half-finished cup of cold brew, feeling proud of how far I'd come. After 5 years of clawing my way up, I was finally a senior analyst at Weston & Co., one of New York's fastest-growing investment firms. My boss, Ethan, had promised a promotion, Vice President of Strategy, the one position I'd dreamed about since I joined. That morning, he'd even said it. "Grace, you've earned this. Let's announce it Monday." I remember smiling all the way back to my desk, fingers trembling as I texted my mom, "We made it, Ma!" But life, as I learned that night, doesn't warn you before it flips everything upside down. When I entered the office the next morning, something was off. My team, people I'd mentored and defended, couldn't meet my eyes. A thick silence hung in the air, broken only by the hum of the copier. Then I saw it, my name missing from the project list on the main screen. In its place was new project lead, Melissa Carter. Melissa, my closest friend, my lunch buddy, the woman who once cried on my shoulder after her breakup. I felt my throat close as I walked toward Ethan's office. But before I could even knock, I heard their voices from inside, low, intimate, and laughing. "You played that perfectly," Ethan said. "Well, she handed me the data," Melissa's voice purred. "All I had to do was make it mine." I froze. My mind went white. They hadn't just stolen my promotion. They'd used my own research, my months of sleepless nights, and twisted it into their golden ticket. My heart hammered, but I forced myself to stay quiet. I pressed my back against the wall, recording every word on my phone, proof that my friend and my boss had conspired to erase me. That was the moment I realized no one was coming to save me. If I wanted justice, I'd have to create it myself. That night, I didn't cry. Not once. I sat by my apartment window, staring at the skyline, glass towers reflecting cold light, and whispered to myself, "You took my work, my name, my future. Now I'll take yours." It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Over the next few days, I stayed silent, pretended to play the role of the broken, defeated woman, but behind closed doors, I was planning. I started gathering every document, email, and timestamp. I knew the financial discrepancies in Ethan's deals and the shortcuts Melissa took to impress him. I wasn't just going to expose them. I was going to destroy them, professionally and socially. And when I was done, they'd remember my name every time someone said the word karma. 3 nights later, as rain streaked the glass of my window, I whispered to the empty room, "Let the game begin." And in that moment, lightning split the sky, as if the universe itself had agreed. For 2 days, I wore calm, like armor. At my desk, I smiled and replied to emails, made notes at meetings, and played the unremarkable role of the analyst who'd been passed over. Nobody looked suspicious. Except Melissa. She kept opening her mouth as if to say something, then closing it. Ethan's gaze skimmed past me like a breeze, polite, distant. The only person who knew the truth was the little recorder app on my phone. I had clung to it the moment I heard them laugh. Ethan's low chuckle, Melissa's pleased, breathy cadence. I transcribed the conversation the very night it happened. It wasn't romance. It was collaboration. They'd taken my slide deck, my model, my notes, and rolled them into a presentation Melissa credited as original work. They'd told the partners. They'd smiled and accepted accolades. I had options. Fury wanted me to storm into Ethan's office and scream until the ceiling tiles shook. Angry friends urged public shaming. But I've learned that fury is loud. Strategy is quiet. I chose quiet. Step 1, build an airtight record. I spent late nights reconstructing the months I'd poured into the project, drafts saved in versions, some with my initials in the metadata, old emails to internal distribution lists with my analyses attached, Slack threads where I'd argued for a methodology that matched the final deck. Somewhere in the company server and in my own backups were the fingerprints of my work. I made copies, PDFs, screenshots, file hashes. Monica, the labor lawyer I'd consulted once when a contract clause confused me, had given me a lesson in preserving evidence. Don't alter, document, timestamp, duplicate.
Step 2. Find allies. At Weston & Co., politics is like an underground river. If you tap the right tributary, you can change the whole flow. I quietly spoke with 2 people who'd always been on my side, Priya from compliance, who had an eye for irregular approvals, and Jordan from IT, who owed me a favor after I'd kept his babysitting schedule secret during a product launch. Not for drama, just for facts. Priya agreed to check audit trails for who uploaded what, when. Jordan promised to pull server logs without fanfare. They didn't know my plan, but they did know fair play. Step 3. Widen the net. If it was only my word against theirs, they'd drown me in charm. So I reached out to vendors who'd worked on the pilot event, outside partners, one of whom was a boutique analytics firm that had been contracted to validate the model. Their invoices were irregular. Late payments, revised scopes, and notes about deliverables that matched parts of my original model. A vendor is often a quiet witness. They remember who wrote what because contracts matter to their payroll. I asked them for copies of the signed scopes and payment receipts under the pretense of reconciling my own bookkeeping. They sent them. A trail emerged. Step 4. Make the first move without making it obvious. I wrote an innocuous, professional email to HR, no accusation, just a question about the project timeline and a request to confirm who officially owned the deliverables. HR replied with the corporate line. They would follow up. The reply was bland, as expected, but HR's automatic response triggered a formal record in the system. An official ping. I wasn't lodging an accusation. I was starting a paper trail. That afternoon, I did something small and surgical. I updated the timestamps on my local files by saving them with new copies and preserved the originals. This was mundane housekeeping. Archival backups, I called them in the memo I saved, which gave me a neat, accessible archive to present later without any appearance of manipulation. In the world of workplace disputes, procedure is your friend. Every move I made was legal, methodical, and deliberate. I wasn't interested in revenge that hurt people personally. I wanted professional accountability, credit for my work, consequences for betrayal, an end to the casual theft of labor and trust. I wanted the record to reflect reality. Week 3. The first wave of ripple effects arrived. Priya's audit found what I already suspected, anomalies in the upload logs. Jordan found several instances where Melissa's account accessed the draft folders late at night and then downloaded copies to a drive labeled with a user tagged as marketing temp. The analytics vendor forwarded emails showing timeline discrepancies. These weren't emotional grievances. These were objective data points that stitched the narrative of appropriation together. I put everything into a single folder. Neat, professional, cold. I called Monica and told her succinctly that I had the materials she'd need. She told me to breathe and prepared a simple approach. Demand an internal investigation first. If HR covered it up, we would escalate to regulatory channels and, if necessary, civil claims. I scheduled a meeting with Ethan. I dressed in a neutral navy suit, the one that didn't scream for attention but caused people to listen. Ethan seemed surprised I'd asked to meet. Pleasantly so. He offered the usual small talk, but I steered the conversation, professional and unshakable. I placed a printed timeline on his glass desk and slid it across. I want to understand how Melissa became project lead. Here are my dates of my drafts, the development notes, and vendor confirmations. I'd like these reviewed. He blinked, then smiled that practiced smile. Grace, this is unfortunate, but Melissa's deck went well. We're moving forward. Then let HR audit. If everything's in order, I'll support the decision. If it's not, I expect remediation. He chuckled. A small, patronizing sound. You're tenacious. Fine. I'll have HR look. The thing is, Ethan believed his invincibility. He'd taken comfort in the assumption that charm and power mask everything. He didn't see the quiet collection of paper and proof that had already begun to tighten like a noose. That night, I sat in my kitchen, the city lights humming below, and opened the folder again. Evidence is a strange thing. It doesn't sing. It just sits. But when you arrange it in order, the story becomes audible, undeniable. I made coffee and started the next step. I emailed the folder securely to Monica and to one trusted journalist I'd met at a nonprofit panel, someone who'd written about ethical corporate behavior before. I wasn't going public. I was creating options. I paused before hitting send. This wasn't about spectacle. This was about reclamation, my name on the work that I had done. Then I clicked send and let the quiet machinery I'd built begin to move.
HR called me in 3 days after I dropped the folder on Ethan's desk. Their tone was the sort that feels like neutral air until you realize it's actually a closing door. I walked into a glass room that smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and corporate caution. Priya sat at the far side with a tablet. She gave me a tiny, private nod. Jordan hovered in the hallway like an altar boy, ready with server prints. Grace, the HR lead said, all softness, "We've initiated an inquiry. We appreciate your patience." Standard process. Her eyes skimmed the timeline on my printed PDF, then flicked to the list of vendor emails. She was doing her job, remembering not to be helpful. I stayed clinical, measured, the way you have to be when your future is a ledger. They asked for a walkthrough. I told them dates. I named the draft file versions. I explained the vendor inconsistencies. I handed them the transcribed recording, the Slack threads, the PDFs, everything. Monica sat beside me on speaker, voice low and strategic. "We're preserving the evidence," she said. "We expect a complete, independent review." The HR lead nodded. The word independent triggered a very different posture. Back at my desk, the office felt like a stage where every whisper echoed. Melissa kept avoiding me. When our eyes did meet, she offered a strange, brittle smile and then scurried away. Gossip is a slow burn in an office. It starts as a spark, and the fuel is always someone's ambition. For a few days, people watched to see who would fall. Ethan called me in for what he characterized as a development chat. I sat across from him, palms flat, and watched the practice charm show up like a trained dog. "I understand you feel wronged," he said, "but sometimes in business, lines blur. Melissa's been instrumental. Perhaps we all misunderstood the authorship." He tried the old reframing, turned the theft into a miscommunication. I returned his smile with paper and quiet facts. Meanwhile, Jordan delivered the kind of technical gift you pray for in these fights. A forensic report showing file access timestamps, IP logs, and a record of downloads from the shared server tied to Melissa's credentials on 3 separate nights, 2 of which occurred after hours and within an hour of my final edits. There was also a curious entry, a drive labeled Marketing Temp that accessed the folder the same night Melissa claimed she was homesick. Jordan had traced that temporary user back to a workstation in Ethan's office via MAC address logs. When the IT report went to HR, the room got colder. The HR lead asked for an in-person interview with Melissa. I sat outside the conference room like a jury waiting for a verdict. The door opened after 90 minutes. Melissa walked out pale, mascara smeared, voice brittle. HR escorted her to a quieter room and informed her she was being placed on administrative leave pending the investigation. I didn't feel like celebrating. Administrative leave is not a sentence. It's a hinge, but it meant the company had to choose facts over friendship for once. Ethan's reaction was a classic, thin restraint. He told me he appreciated my professionalism. Privately, though, I noticed the way he deleted calendar entries, the way he avoided the coffee kiosk. Small, guilty shuffles. He tried to meet with partners to frame the episode as a misunderstanding of contribution, but Priya's audit, Jordan's logs, and the vendor emails made it hard to market ambiguity. Melissa's lawyer showed up with a different tactic. They went public, in-house, with a defensive memo suggesting that my archived files were recent duplications, that I might have altered timestamps to create a narrative. It was an old play. Reverse the burden. Paint the whistleblower as the manipulator. Monica was ready. She filed a preservation order and submitted the raw server logs to an independent digital forensics firm she trusted. If anyone was going to claim I doctored files, we were going to let a neutral expert decide. In the interim, the office divided into camps. Some people nodded at me in hallways, quiet and sincere. Others treated me like a contagious idea. Keep distance. Observe. Act if necessary. The partners called for patience. The rumor mill churned. One morning, a doctored screenshot of my inbox circulated on Slack. Someone had photoshopped my name into a snarky internal chat. It was juvenile and ugly. Instead of panicking, I forwarded it to Monica. She flagged it as evidence of an in-house smear campaign, and we added it to the compiled appendix. The forensics report arrived 2 weeks later, and it was the kind of document that blocks easy spin. It showed original creation dates, edit histories with unbroken chains and metadata indicating I was the originator of the analytical model, down to the formula naming conventions I used. The Marketing Temp drive had accessed the folder and downloaded a copy. The MAC address matched a workstation in Ethan's office. The timestamps aligned with the time Melissa claimed she was homesick. Neutrality favored me for once. HR convened a partner-level meeting to present the independent report. The room smelled of coffee and consequences. Ethan sat rigid, Melissa absent. The partners listened, reading the logs, emails, and vendor statements. One partner,
older, not a man given to drama, looked up and said, "If the forensics are accurate, then appropriation occurred." It was the kind of sentence that moves boardroom tectonics. They agreed to a formal reprimand and demanded restitution for the vendors who'd been shorted. But of course, things don't resolve cleanly. The damage had already extended beyond the office. Melissa's camp retaliated with whispers. Grace is abrasive, she's difficult under pressure, she's litigious. One partner, nervous about client optics, suggested mediation. Monica smiled thinly and said no. If mediation meant whitewashing theft, we preferred adjudication and transparency. She filed notice of intent to pursue civil claims should internal remedies be insufficient. The pressure mounted. Anonymous texts began to arrive, short, ugly notes about my future and my temper. Someone vandalized my car with a note taped under the wiper. "Watch your back." I took photos and forwarded them to the detective Monica recommended, an independent investigator who specialized in workplace harassment. He came by discreetly, took statements, and told me to secure any further messages. Threats shift the floor from corporate to criminal. Once that line is crossed, other doors open. Through it all, the vendors held firm. One by one, they produced invoices, payment trails, and email threads that corroborated my timeline. A boutique analytics firm even supplied their original validation notes, hand-marked comments referencing my model naming conventions. When their ledger was cross-referenced with the company's payment history, it showed late payments timed to the months Melissa led the rollout. The ripple effect tightened. And then, unexpectedly, the journalist, Caleb, the one I'd sent the sanitized folder to, reached out. He'd written a restrained piece on corporate appropriation and asked if I'd consider an on-the-record interview. I bristled at first. Publicity can be a tool and a trap. But Monica saw the value. If the story is true, the public record works in your favor. No slander, just facts. We arranged a cautious interview. Facts only, documentation offered, a single quote about the importance of corporate integrity. When the article ran, it wasn't a scream, it was a careful illumination. The headline quoted the partner's sentence. If the forensics are accurate, industry blogs picked it up, vendors posted their relief, partners chewed on the reputational risk. Ethan's calendar filled with tough meetings, Melissa's administrative leave stretched. I didn't revel. I kept a quiet schedule. Early runs, late nights cataloging evidence, coffees with allies who had stayed. Revenge, I had learned, is not a crown to wear at the end. It's a responsibility to wield well. I was trying to reclaim my work and my name, but also to ensure this didn't become a blueprint for future thefts anyone tolerated. One evening, Monica called. She said, "They've offered a settlement to the vendors and are drafting a public acknowledgement. It's not an admission beyond the company-mandated language, but it's meaningful. They want this quiet." I asked if I wanted quiet. Monica paused. "Grace, you started this for the truth, not for spectacle. If they truly remediate and make victims whole, that's justice. If they try to bury it, we litigate." I slept that night with a folder of documents beside my bed. The city hummed. A different kind of music now. One that sounded like small gears finally aligning. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time since my name disappeared from that project list, I felt the cold, clean edge of possibility.
The night felt colder than usual, though the air was thick with the promise of revenge. Emily stood outside the shimmering glass tower of Weston Enterprises, wearing a black hoodie and clutching the flash drive like a live grenade. Inside that drive was her redemption, proof that Daniel Weston, her ex-fiancé and the company's golden boy, had destroyed lives for his own success. She took a deep breath. No turning back now. The guard at the door nodded when she smiled politely. Emily still carried the calm grace of a woman who once belonged to Daniel's world. She stepped into the elevator, pressed 39, and the numbers began to rise. Each ding echoed like a countdown. When the elevator opened, the glow of the office lights hit her. Cold, white, sterile. At the far end of the hallway stood Daniel, alone, gazing out at the city skyline. "Emily," he said without turning, "you really couldn't let it go, could you?" She froze for a second, her pulse racing. "You ruined my life, Daniel. You made sure I was blamed for something you did." He turned slowly, smirking. "And yet, you're here. Still trying to fight a battle you already lost." Emily held up the flash drive. "This says otherwise." Daniel's eyes flickered with something. Fear. He tried to mask it with arrogance. "You think you can scare me with that? I don't need to scare you. I just need to expose you." Suddenly,
2 men stepped out from the shadows behind him, hired security, big and silent. Emily's grip tightened. She hadn't expected this. Daniel walked closer, his voice dripping with cruelty. "You could have had everything, Emily, but you chose revenge. Now look where it got you." But Emily wasn't afraid. She smiled, calm, confident. "You are right. I did choose revenge, but I also chose to be smarter this time." Her phone buzzed. A message popped up. "Upload complete." Daniel's smile vanished. "What did you do?" "I uploaded everything to the media servers 10 minutes ago. They'll see the accounts, the fake signatures, the blackmail payments, every dirty thing you've ever done." The color drained from his face. You can't." "Oh, but I did." He lunged forward, trying to snatch her phone. One of his men grabbed her arm roughly, but Emily twisted free, adrenaline and fury guiding her every move. She slammed the flash drive into Daniel's chest. "This was for my father, for my career, for every woman you thought you could break." Then she turned and ran. Security alarms blared. The elevators were locked. She raced down the emergency stairs, her heart hammering like a drum. Outside, the night rain fell hard, washing the city in streaks of light. She stopped near the corner cafe, the same place where she used to meet Daniel years ago, when love still blinded her. Now, she looked at her reflection in the cafe window, soaked, trembling, but finally free. Across town, on every screen, from business news to social media, Daniel Weston's face appeared, accompanied by headlines, "CEO exposed in corporate fraud scandal. Whistleblower reveals massive corruption inside Weston Enterprises." Emily exhaled shakily, whispering, "Justice served." But her phone buzzed again. A new number, a single message. "You think it's over." Her eyes widened. The chill returned. Somewhere in the dark, Daniel's powerful allies had just started to move, and Emily realized her war had only begun. 3 weeks had passed since Emily's expose. The city buzzed with the fallout. Daniel Weston's empire had crumbled overnight. His investors fled, his assets were frozen, and his face was plastered on every headline as the CEO who fell from grace. But peace never lasts long when power is at stake. Emily sat in her small apartment overlooking the Hudson, sipping cold coffee, exhaustion heavy beneath her eyes. She had won. At least that's what the world thought. But deep down, she knew the game wasn't over. Every night since that text, "You think it's over," she felt watched. Cars idling too long outside her building. Anonymous envelopes slipped under her door. Someone was cleaning up Daniel's mess, and she was next on their list. Still, she refused to hide. That morning, she received an email from an unknown sender. Subject: "One last truth." Inside was a single address, the same abandoned waterfront warehouse where Daniel used to conduct his secret deals. Attached was a line that read, "If you want to end this, come alone." Emily's stomach clenched. Every instinct screamed it was a trap, but something inside her, the same fire that had carried her this far, told her she needed to face it. She arrived at sunset. The sky was bruised orange and purple, the river glinting like spilled gasoline. Her footsteps echoed through the hollow space of the warehouse. Then a shadow moved. Daniel. He stepped forward, looking nothing like the arrogant man from before. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. He spat. "You destroyed everything I built. You built it on lies," Emily shot back. "It was never yours to keep." He laughed bitterly, stepping closer. "You think you're the hero? You leaked company secrets. You ruined hundreds of innocent employees." "I didn't ruin them," she said coldly. "You did. When you stole their pensions, manipulated markets, and silenced whistleblowers. I just showed the world the truth." Daniel's eyes darkened. "You always thought you were smarter. Better. That's what I hated most about you." He pulled something from his pocket, a gun, black and cold. Emily froze. For a moment, the world went silent except for the sound of the river outside. Daniel's hand trembled. "Say you're sorry. Say you regret it." Emily looked straight at him. Her voice didn't shake. "I'm not sorry, and I don't regret a damn thing." He clenched his jaw, fury boiling over. But before he could act, Red and blue lights flared through the broken windows. Police sirens. Daniel spun around, panicking. What? How? Emily whispered. You're not the only one who knows how to set a trap. Officers stormed in, shouting commands. Daniel tried to run, but the moment he raised the gun, a warning shot echoed, and he dropped it, hands shaking, finally defeated. Emily stood still as they took him away. The once powerful man who had destroyed her life now looked small, human. As dawn broke over the city, Emily walked out to the pier, her face bathed in golden light. The storm had passed. For the first time in years, she could breathe. She looked out at the skyline, whispering, "You can't bury the truth forever." Then she smiled softly, tears glinting in her eyes. "Dad, this was for you." Her phone buzzed one last time. A news notification flashed. Daniel Weston sentenced to 25 years in federal prison, whistleblower praised as symbol of courage. Emily stared at it for a moment, then turned off the phone, choosing silence, peace, and a future unshackled by vengeance. The wind off the river brushed her face gently, as if the city itself was saying, "Thank you." She closed her eyes, letting the moment sink in. Her revenge story had become her rebirth, and as the sun climbed higher, painting the sky gold, Emily walked away, finally free.